Hello chess friends, and welcome to Azarov's chess channel, and welcome to my advanced chess theory and to another part of the King's Indian defense. Today again against the 4-pawn attack, from black's perspective of course, and today I wanted to show you a different continuation while playing in the center. So it's an important thing that you have to know while playing against the 4-pawn attack, and if you don't react correctly in the center, so you'll be crushed very easily. So uh, here we have again this 4-pawn attack setup, and now after f4 castling and after knight on f3, here I again recommend you to go into sort of a Benoni style, and here d5. Now after e6, if white decides to take the pawn on e6, he's not allowing to go in this line that I showed in my previous video, this liberating line. So he takes on e6, and he's targeting for this weak d6. So here I recommend you to take with the pawn, not with the bishop. If you take with the bishop, knight can come on g5 and challenge the bishop, and you have to again, of course, you have not a good square. You cannot go on g4, and if you go on d7, this pawn would be hanging, and you would simply have to go back on c8. So that's not what you want to do. Here in this position, I recommend you to go to take with the e6 with the pawn. So now well, you see now black's and white's position. Of course, we have here this d6 pawn, but it cannot be it cannot be challenged so fast, because after moves like knight on b5, then we have this d5, and it would really open the center. With the king in the center, it would be good for black here, and that's our goal, to simply break this pawn structure. But the other thing is that if you see white's position, he has this weak square of d4, and you have to always find weak squares in your opponent's half of the board. So you see this line, and you try to target his weak squares or weak pawns. So here we have a weak square, maybe white's weak square of g4, and f4. This f4 pawn can also be a weakness, and we have here maybe the e4. It also can be a target for white. Of course, I've told before, this d4, and that's the most important, because it's in the center, and if you can fix here the center, it would be good for you. And of course the c4 can be a target. So although with the space advantage, white has multiple weaknesses, and you can really play on to them. So after that was bishop to d3. Bishop to d3 was played with this simple idea to play f5 and really break in the center. So after casting, to maybe open the f file and maybe go with knight on g5 and really create a deadly attack. But here Kasparov reacted correctly with the knight on c6, and now he's preparing to jump in on this weak square, as told, the square of d4. So here after castling, Kasparov did it, knight on d4, and if white takes now this knight, black can take, and after something like knight on b5, here we have this very good move of e5. So this e5, it's an important thing for you to know. You have now, if something takes this pawn and opens the f file, you have this. You would then have this sort of supported passed pawn. You see, this is a passed pawn. It can go. It can promote to a queen, but it's supported, and that's our main strategical idea in endgames, to have supported passed pawns. So white doesn't have supported passed pawns. He has to create something here on the queen side, because these two pawns are on these two pawns. So he would have to create, but if you play correctly, then you wouldn't allow white to have supported passed pawns himself. So you will have to basically just trade the pieces, and then you would have a winning endgame with the supported pass pawn. So I want you to memorize it. It's an important thing for you to know. It's a strategical idea in endgames to have such positions. So of course, White isn't interested to go in such line, so he played this knight on g5, and now Kasparov plays e5 with another support again on this d4 knight, and of course he would simply have again, if something takes now the d4 knight, he would then have again a supported pass pawn. So this knight is really dominating in the center. You see the squares that it occupies, and it's a really dominating knight. And of course it has to be taken, but of course it would create then again supported pass pawn. So now we have f5, because now White has to play on his idea of this f5 idea. And here Kasparov plays again accurate with his h6, kicking the knight away. And after knight on h3, he took with the g on f5. So now White takes on f5, and you see now Black's problem is here, because he has here the situation 3 pawns on 1 pawn, and if he allows White to go into attack and maybe kick out this knight from here, he would be in sort of troubles. That's why, as in my previous video I've told you, with this b5 maneuver here, you have to, when you're playing against a 4 pawn attack, you have to see if it's allowed to play b5. So every time you play against a 4 pawn attack, see for yourself, is it allowed for you to play b5. So here we have Kasparov played b5. So let's see if c takes b5. Then we have here the move d5, and it's really, you see now these 3 pawns are really dominating in the center. So here we have 2 connected pawns in the center, and that's a strategical idea. Central pawns connected, even 3 of them, but of course this has to go around this pawn. But you see you have this e5, e4 possibilities, then maybe d4 possibilities, even c4 possibilities. And this is really good center control for Black here, and that's probably not something that White would allow. So if the knight takes on b5, again we have the same thing, knight takes on b5, c takes on b5, and again d5. So you see now this problem of this bishop, and after something like, I don't know, maybe g4, you have simply this e4 move, so with the tempo. So after that, after b5, of course White calculated all that, and he played bishop to e3. So now b took on c4, and with the bishop take on c4, the king was attacked, and the king came to h8. You may think now here that Black has light square problems around this king here, but it's not so easy for him to jump with the knight here, because this pawn is very good. This bishop is aiming into emptiness. So here is Black simply better with again the idea to play this d5 and get again this good central control. So after bishop to c5 and king to h8, bishop to d4 was played, and now c takes on d4, again with the idea, and it's the same thing again, 3 pawns here in the center could really cause some troubles for White. So now came knight on d5, and here is where Garry Kasparov, I don't know, he found simply these moves, and I've told it before, there are a couple players that can find some moves like that. He played the move bishop to h6, so really a great move. Now if bishop takes on h6, knight would come on d5, and of course with the threat on playing the knight on e3, and after something like queen to h5, you have again knight on e3 with the attack on the rook, although with this, I don't know, with this couple of likes for problems, black can play after that something like queen to f6, and again play on this very good 3 pawns in the center, which will be unstoppable for white. So maybe something like rook to f2, but you see, it's not a problem here for black. He has really good pawns, and he has the space control with this d4 pawn. So that's why white took the knight on f6, and here bishop took on c4, and we have this attack on the rook and attack on the knight. So that's why he played knight on h5, and Kasparov simply take the rook. So very nice tactical shot here by Kasparov, and here he plays queen to d7 to support, of course, the bishop. And after taking the bishop, he played d3 just to prevent. It's a provocative move. He wants to go with the queen and simply take this pawn, which he might thought that he could cause him some troubles. And then came the queen to f3. But again, you see Kasparov simply pushed. He wants to get he wants to deflect the rook or the queen to simply take this f pawn, which is his main problem. And if he gets rid of this f pawn, he goes simply in the winning endgame. So with of course with a better exchange. So now came g4, and here rook to c8 with the threat of playing c1, and that's his main idea. So now came queen to d3, and here Kasparov finds again a very good move, queen to a4, and with an attack of this pawn, and he wants simply get rid of this pawn chain that white has here. Very good play. So knight on f2 came, and here Kasparov offers the trade of queens, which is of course good, because he has, well, I've told it, he has these like square problems, and they would be solved if the queens are traded. So that's what happened in the game. But now after knight on f4, we see here this sort of funny pawn structure, three double pawns, and but okay, they're still mobile because the rook is on the c file, and pardon me, the rook is on the c file, and it's threatening here to trade rooks, and then the other rook would come into the game through the e or c file, and would threaten with the promotion of queen. Now came rook from f to e8, and now came knight on e6. He was trying to simply block out the rooks from the open files, and now came this rook to c8, and of course knight on d1. He wasn't he didn't want to trade rooks, of course, in this sort of position. So now came bishop to f6. The idea is maybe to play bishop to g5, or maybe something like bishop to d8, or supporting this pawn. So he wants to bring the bishop on more active diagonal. So now came king to f2, and now bishop to g5 with the support. And of course, if the knight takes, then again we will have here an open e file. So now after king to e2, he was getting closer to this pawn here, where black uses this pin on the king to bring his other rook into the game, and here where white played king to d3. So this is now a good setup. Even threats are here to simply take the rook to give up his rook for the knight and the pawn, because then he would fix the position here with this bishop on e3, and with the supported rook, let's see, he would then have again two connected pawns. So here the knight took, and here came a rook to f2. So we have rook to e4 here now, and again we have here rook to e3, and that's what I've told you before. If white takes, now you have here this move of taking on e3, and we have again this position of two connected pawns, because rook to e2 is not a possibility because of promotion, and if something like rook to f1 comes, then you have simply this e2, and promoting the queen is not preventable. So here in this position, white took simply the pawn on d4, and here again we have rook to e4, cutting out the king from the game, and after king to d5, rook to e2, and again offer of exchange, but here is after rook to e1, and after f6 was played, here rook to f4, and here is where white resigned. Very good play by Garry Kasparov. So it's a really aggressive style again against the four-pawn attack, but the critical moment, I think, was happening after this move of b5. It was really again a liberating move with this good center control, with this with building on this very good center. So the funny thing is that white had the center in the start of the game, and it ended with a good center control with the pawns of black. So thank you for watching, guys. More King's Indian videos are to come, and see you next time. Chess is the best, guys.